Gallup just released their 2026 State of the Global Workplace report. They put this report out every year, taking a look at what's going on in the workplace across the globe. And the headline number is striking. Global employee engagement has hit a 5-year low. We are down to 20%. It just keeps going down every year. Here's the number that really shocks me, though. The estimated cost to the world economy is $10 trillion in lost productivity. $10 trillion, that blows my mind. Now, if you've been following my channel for a little while, you know that I've been talking about the conditions that create engagement or destroy it for a long time. And when I read this report, it just affirmed for me how important this is. I wasn't necessarily surprised by the lowering employee engagement, but what I was struck by is another number buried a little bit deeper inside the 2026 State of the Global Workplace report. That is, the sharpest decline isn't happening among frontline employees, it's happening among managers. Manager employment has dropped 9 points since 2022. The people that we expect to hold performance together, to help other people with their engagement, to maintain team morale, to execute organizational strategy, the linchpin of the organization, the manager, is now among the most disengaged people in the workforce. This report is super helpful in understanding what is going on and what the trends are in employee engagement. But I want to dig into something the report can't fully explain, is the why. I want to give you the answer today, because if you understand why managers are disengaging, you'll also understand exactly what has to change to fix this problem. Because the reality is, even if the trends keep going down globally, you can make a big difference in your organization and you can change what that number looks like in your organization. The stakes for this are really high. Gallup's own research shows that managers account for 70% of the variance in team engagement. So we know team engagement and employee engagement contributes hugely to the productivity and the bottom line of an organization, and managers are the linchpin of that. They account for 70% of the variance in employee engagement. So when managers disengage, when managers are out, the whole system destabilizes and starts to fall apart. Most organizations, when they get their employee engagement data back, are focused on those frontline employees. How do we improve engagement overall? Because we know that engagement impacts the bottom line. But they're missing where the collapse is actually starting. When we look at managers, what I hear from a lot of people is, listen, the world is a crazy place right now. Managers are burned out. They're overloaded. They're stressed. All these things are real. But these are symptoms. They are not the causes. The deeper cause is that managers are being asked to deliver clarity and connection to their teams while receiving neither from the organizations above them. So you've seen my framework before. The clarity times connection equals commitment. That is the focus of my work and what I love to help managers and organizations create for their team and for their whole organization is clarity and connection. When we have a clarity failure, 40% of managers right now are saying that leadership expectations are unclear. So when leadership expectations are unclear, when there's a lack of clarity, these managers don't know what success looks like. And you can't commit to a standard you can't see. So when a manager doesn't understand what the expectations look like from above, there's no way they can provide that clarity to their team. Managers are also feeling this failure in connection. So organizations, when they invest heavily in employee engagement programs, are so focused on the frontline employees, and the managers who are tasked with delivering those programs often feel unseen, unsupported, and isolated. When we ask managers about training, only 44% of managers globally have ever received any sort of training in management. So managers aren't being taught how to provide clarity and connection to their people, nor are they being given that clarity and connection from above. So that leaves them with a lack of commitment to the organization and without the ability to create that commitment in their people. This is not a manager problem. It's not a management problem. It's a leadership infrastructure problem. Only 19% of managers say they have strong delegation skills. Probably the most important thing that we need managers to do is to be able to delegate well. Only less than 20% say they know how to delegate well, not because they are incapable, because they've never been trained. So training managers is a key piece in fixing this engagement problem and in starting to change the numbers within your organization. I want to talk about this kind of cascading effect. I've referenced it before, but what happens when your managers are disengaged? When your manager is disengaged and they're not feeling that clarity from above, performance clarity breaks down. The manager loses their own sense of direction, and so they stop providing clear expectations for their teams. They don't have the ability to provide that clarity. Connection completely disappears. When a manager doesn't feel connection from the people above them, then their ability to provide that connection and that relationship capital to their people starts to break down. Managers become overwhelmed and they go completely transactional. Check-ins become task reviews, feedback becomes reactive, and that whole relational aspect of the workplace starts to thin out. As I say this, I hope you are remembering a time when you have been in that situation. All of us have been in a workplace when things became so overwhelming and there was a lack of clarity and a lack of connection, and you feel it. You feel all the relationship capital just eke out of the workplace. And then nobody feels that committed anymore. Commitment starts to collapse because teams mirror their managers. When the person at the front of the room is checked out, the people in the seats notice and follow their lead. So when organizations launch these incredible employee engagement initiatives and they give them to the managers, here you go, here's this great tool that we have given you. It's like asking someone who's drowning to teach a swim class because the manager doesn't have that clarity and connection of their own to pass on. So as an organization, what we need to do instead is step up and back just a little bit and apply the clarity times connection framework to the manager level itself and not just the teams. Here's what that looks like. For clarity within your organization, you need to define what excellent supervision actually looks like in your organization. Not a vague competency model, but specific, observable behaviors. What does a well-led team look, sound, and feel like in our organization? And we need to make sure that managers feel that and are trained on that and understand that, as well as expect them to deliver that for their teams. It's got to come on both sides for them. For connection, we have to invest in genuine relational engagement with your managers, not just performance conversations. Every conversation you have with your managers needs that connection as well as the clarity. Do your managers feel known by the leaders in your organization? Do they have a relationship strong enough to surface struggle before it becomes departure, before they take off? So if your managers have a leader who is providing that relational connection with them, then they're going to go to that leader and say, I'm struggling here. This is hard. I'm not sure what to do, before they just disappear. So what we do to fix this is we stop adding to the manager's plate before stabilizing the foundation. So instead of giving the manager tools for employee engagement, we focus on stabilizing the foundation and making sure that the manager has everything they need to be able to succeed. Once they have everything they need to succeed, and we start giving them the tools to focus on their team. Another thing we can do is when we're looking at those employee engagement reports that we're getting in, instead of just looking at the frontline employees and the overall engagement numbers, separate out your data and treat manager engagement as a leading indicator, not a lagging one. By the time turnover shows up in the data, by the time managers are leaving, This disconnection and this lack of commitment has been building for months, if not years. So we need to track it earlier. We need to be looking at the engagement data specifically from the managerial level and seeing how we can support them and make sure that they have what they need. So before you launch your next engagement initiative, before you go start collecting any more data, start focusing on the managers and asking whether the managers themselves are engaged. Fix the foundation first. You cannot build an engaged workforce on a disengaged management layer. The math just doesn't work. The framework has to go all the way up. You need clarity and connection at every single layer to create the commitment that you're trying to get to help your organization be successful. So, if you happen to be an executive or an HR leader watching this and you're listening to me and recognizing your organization in this data, you're going, yep, I feel this as at a visceral level. We've got some managers who are disengaged. I would love to talk. This is a solvable problem. We can use training and development to provide clarity and connection to your managerial level and change the engagement data across your organization. But it just requires starting in the right place.